Welcome to Audio Products Podcast. We are meeting with pro audio industry veterans, founders, product managers, UX designers, to learn how they build and manage the products we all love. You will get tips how to navigate your career in audio and how to develop a successful audio product, from musical instruments through audio plugins and gaming middleware up to music distribution platforms or consumer electronics like headphones, mics, and even automotive speaker systems. Enjoy. Hey Varda, good to see you.
Good to see you too. How have you been?
I'm good, very well. How are you?
All good. Friday morning, easy going. Happy to be here on your podcast. It's a pleasure.
Likewise, good to, finally we made it.
Yes.
It's been a while, right? But finally we are here. Varda, so before we just jump, into marketing, and I have so many questions about the marketing in Aiode and generally in the market, sort of your experience in marketing. Could you maybe just start by, telling the listeners a little bit about you, what you do, and what is your background? How did you land where you are today?
For sure. So I've been in marketing for the last 16 years, mostly in tech. I started off in edtech, and I grew up building products for marketing. And at some point, I realized I really want to go and build marketing for companies, for tech companies. So I've been in cyber and fintech most of my CMO career, and I did two exits, small exits, one with a cyber company and one with a fintech company that I helped build. And I'm a keyboardist since I was in the age of 5, and I dabble with the music production myself. And my wife is a singer in an amateur band called the Day Job Keepers. And I just finished off my last startup when one of Aiode's investors approached me. He's a friend of a friend, and he said, "Listen, I have these amazing guys. They have this amazing technology. They need somebody like you. Come and listen." And that's exactly what I did. And I fell in love with the Idan and Blue, the founders of Aiode, who are now close friends. And I fell in love with the technology. I fell in love with the idea. And this is what brought me here today. So I kind of came from this very traditional, very mega conglomerate kind of lots of compliance kind of field into something that I really love, that is entertainment, which is something that I started with in my career. So it's kind of completing a full circle for my career, kind of starting with entertainment and now with Aiode being in music tech. So for me, it was kind of a no-brainer. The fact that what Aiode is doing is so advanced, so revolutionary in the music space field and the AI music field is what drew me into this. And I'm loving it. Like, music tech is so different from other fields in the tech space. Very much different.
I hear you. Actually, I came, like a pretty similar path, so I also work in other industries and, making music myself. I mean, I figured out one day, actually, hey, I mean, I can do two things. I love music, and I can do a product, digital products, and then I realized that there are so many people. I mean, this is just, normal career path for many people, like 20, 30 years building, instruments, building plugins, building those. And yeah, so I can relate with what you're saying. And can you mentioned Aiode, and I mean, I hope I will be able to talk to the founder team as well at some point.
Yeah,
But I mean,
sure.
you mentioned. I mean,
That's the
honestly,
next one.
I saw
That's
it,
the
and
next
I
episode.
sorry.
That's the next episode with
Yeah.
it. No worries.
Yep. Um, yeah, so but I mean, of course, I saw Aiode already, and we had, you gave me a nice demo. But I mean, what's can you say what Aiode is and what it does and why actually
For
you
sure.
liked it so much?
So for sure, Aiode is a revolutionary AI platform for music producers, music creators, professional music creators. Aiode built the first ever AI model to model real musicians to their virtual selves. And we're the first true ethical AI platform for music. So this means that all of the data that we used is either licensed or created by us. All of the musicians that participate with Aiode, both as single musician models and the other different models that we have, which are layers and sample remaker, are all remunerated with a revenue share model. This means that when we work with an amazing session musician that we turn into a virtual musician that producers can play with, can create a session with, can arrange their new kind of project with in our scale down DAW, um, is what they're paid both for their time when we record them with our own software, because we don't model only the audio, we model the behavior of the musician on the tour. And they're also compensated with a revenue share from all proceeds coming from paid tokens that is used on their model. So basically, we've created a new business model in the field. And this business model is to support the fact that music AI today cannot be remunerated with the traditional kind of in economic infrastructure. And I think there's a lot more to do in terms of both regulation in the field and
Exactly.
in terms of also how we push business to do better. So we kind of pin down the fact that we're one of the most ethical. We were the first to kind of say we need to do things the right way, even if it takes a bit more time. If it's harder, we need to do this the right way, and this is how we did this. Aiode's vision is to be a mega platform, an ecosystem for musicians and producers to collaborate through AI. So today we have three different models. We have the single musician models, which are amazing session musicians that we partnered with. Each one has more than 15 years of experience, from acoustic drummer to pianist to trumpeter to many, many more. You can find them in Aiode. You can learn about them. You can listen to their music. Then you upload your track, your project that you work with, and you start managing a session. Not by text prompts, by actual buttons and knobs and kind of dragging bars and creating regions and generating takes the way music creators know how to work with plugins. And that's the similarity here through a desktop app. And kind of manage that session through there. We've invented two other different models lately. One is called the layers, which are different production assistants. From that layer is kind of a curated musicians towards a specific goal. So, for example, we have a layer called cinematic, which is an orchestra layer, which will listen to your music and understand what is the kind of orchestral dramatical effect that you need in the song. We have the pixel, which is more meant to kind of create the electronics, kind of synth bass vibe, synthetic kind of feel into that with a lot of effects. We have the final touch, which helps music producers, music creators understand transitions and effects and sub basses. So we have kind of two different models. One is actually working with a specific musician with a specific style, and another are more production assistants. And the third model that we've developed, all are sitting in the same platform, the Aiode platform, is the sample remaker. And that's something that's became a really big hit lately, because it's really simple. You have your track, our platform listen to your track, then you have a sample. That sample doesn't fit the song, more something a lot of producers are having trouble with. this is an amazing sample, but it's not in the right beat, it's not in the right tempo, it's not in the right BPM. And what we do is we take that sample, we break it, we don't stretch it, we break it, and we remake it again into something that would fit completely into your track. So that's kind of been something we've seen since the minute we've launched it. This has been one of the most used tools in Aiode.
Yeah, so you mentioned how it stretches. Let me just maybe
Yes.
take a break, and then can I ask you then a question about who's the like who's actually your customer? Because I know that the AI, ethical or not, is still pretty controversial, and there is a lot of musicians who are not very fond of AI. So I'm just curious, who is your I mean, maybe there are different segments and different groups, but is this a professional musicians or more like a content creators or maybe a bedroom producers who never actually were very proficient with instruments, so they can just the same way they use a virtual instruments, they right now use the AI as
So it really varies, and it's a great question, because when we came into this, and I came into this, and when we started, I had a vision in mind of what would be the ideal customer, and that kind of shifted between the different features that we've launched throughout the last year and a half. So I can tell you, if I'm looking at the sample remaker, I see all types of music creators, except for really, let's say, content creators, because when you're going into Aiode, you're gonna see something that needs at least a small understanding of music theory, of what are bars, what's a BPM, what is tempo, in order to kind of get you started. Um, and it's intentional, because we believe this is something that's not meant to replace producer. It's meant to be an assistive tool, a creative assistive tool in your kind of process. So with that, we say we don't replace musician, but if you don't have a pianist that you need to now, and you need a pianist now, go to Aiode. We want to be the second best thing after a real musician. So we see that, if I look at the majority of the users on the platform, we have kind of two different ICPs, two different kind of personas that we see mostly. One is more singer songwriters on the kind of bedroom mid range, I would say. Indie, a lot of indie. Because I'm saying indie, because I think what's happening is that we now have lots of indie musicians, lots of indie artists. The democratization of music is happening in this age. And we see that a lot of people who have yearned to be more active with their dream of creating music are now feeling that they have the tools and the ability. So if you do have some background, you feel that you have more to give to the world, and we see that. I just talked a couple of weeks ago to one of our biggest fans, one of the people who are most active in our community, and this is a guy from Colombia who's working most of his life in his family's business, that is textile factories, and and uh, and he's a musician. His heart is in music, and he feels that in the last 5 years he has more tools to create music. So one of the amazing things he's now doing with the sample remaker actually is building a sample pack from the sounds of the sewing machines. How cool is that?
the
How
Sonos
cool
one.
is
That's a
that?
Yeah, I can see
Because
that's a perfect case, I mean, for using AI. Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah.
that's amazing. How could somebody have the ability, when I hear about these amazing things, you immediately think about a contact library, right? On something that needed tons of people to kind of record in hours and then break it down and create from that, and that's an immense, that's lots of costs just to create that kind of sample pack. And that sometimes make that less accessible to people, because until you get there, and it's going to be very specific, and it's going to be very specific to the producer who created that contact library. And that's amazing by itself. There's lots of respect for that. But then you have people like that amazing producer by heart. That's not what he's doing most of his day, but he's producer by heart. If he could do this full time, I'm sure he would be. But that's kind of an edge that he has. He has these amazing environments. He now have these amazing tools to kind of make something of his dream come true. And I see that as part of what AI is helping to do in a lot of fields. It's helping kind of people break barriers to build their own dreams, to build their own kind of stack. If it's on the technological level, if it's the music level, the creative level. I think we see this throughout most of the verticals today.
But if you, for example, take the step, like a single musicians, do people use this to really build tracks or build more like demos? I'm asking
Yes.
because I know that there is more and more like this, and I have to say that honestly, I I can understand and relate to it, like Bandcamp, who really banned all AI music whatsoever. So I just wonder if somebody just generally, let's say, like a bass or set, some I don't know. You mentioned singers, right? So I understand that somebody's singing and try to create some kind of track. Yeah. So I just wonder, do people create demos, or they can also do they also publish their a ready track?
They totally publish. We have more. We have we know of more than 60, 70 tracks that we know of that were created using Aiode. And it doesn't need to be all of the track. But for example, we have a singer-songwriter from the US called Olivia, and she came to us. We were talking to her a lot. We did a demo, and nothing happened. And about 2 months after that, she said, I'm building the song. I really need the guitar. I know you have an amazing electric guitarist, and I need an electric guitar riff here. Can I do this? And I said, sure, we did the demo. You can do this. And this was added to the song. She put two takes of different guitars in two places of the song. She had so much fun. She tried another musician. She tried our trumpeter Avior, and that got into the song as well. So we have more than a few songs. There's a lot of producers that we know that create with Aiode. And it varies from ideation to kind of understand what you want to do, because part of what's unique with Aiode is we model the behavior of the musicians. So opposed to other platforms, you can get something that you can perform, right? You won't get something that you need 6 fingers to kind of play, or a third hand, which happens with some of the AI tools today, because they're focused on what's the musical role that the musician is going to get you, less than what if it's performative or if it's humanized in some way. So we see also musicians, for example, ideate with us. So we know of a few guitarists who kind of play with our own guitarists, our virtual guitarists. We have some of our musicians who use Aiode for their personal productions as well. For example, Dar Moshe, the acoustic drummer that we recently added, is he's friends with our trumpeter. And when he can get Avior, the real trumpeter, he's using Aiode's Avior, the trumpeter, for his productions. So it kind of varies from people who are using Aiode to ideation using them for a demo, and of course using them to publish and distribute their songs. Uh,
Gotcha.
Aiode is, when you create something with Aiode, it's fully yours. So when you own the track, it's fully yours. It's the licensing of it allows you to monetize it. How we've created the platform, make sure that within all the global rules per AI, it's not considered something that is AI created, because you create this with the AI and it's
Mm.
mostly yours.
That's
Uh,
controversial, you see. I mean, I honestly, I mean, just, I mean, I have like a hard time actually, like a sort of like a, you know, uh, somehow like a make my mind about it, because, you know, I mean, I would have, honestly have to say that with the like a, where I can see like a great way, you know, to create demos or like a sample packs, just like a beautiful, like a case, beautiful case. I mean, to me, sounds controversial to publish music which is partly made by AI without actually list. You know, I would actually expect platforms, you know, like Spotify and others to stamp this is just AI or this partly AI generated music, you know, so people understand that it's not just played, right? It's just generated, you know. So I mean, I know Bandcamp went very sort of like a radical already, like in everything with AI, like which is,
yes,
which, by the way, I don't know how they are going to like how to say how they are going to, you know, like um, you know, filter what's AI, what's not, right? But I mean, you know, let me explain why. Because I, you know, to me, the you know, like playing with musicians is actually the fun part, you know. So I have this kind of mixed feeling, because, you know, it's just taking away things which is actually the biggest fun in music making, right? I mean, so anybody who played like with a band or like or you know, like had the musicians play on their album, it's completely, you know, it's, yeah. But I understand you mentioned like when we met for the first time, you know, that the idea came from not being able to actually access, right,
exactly.
the
So
musicians.
we say, and we say it loud, if you have accessibility to amazing musicians and you can do that, you don't need, we're the second option. Go with musicians first. We value that musicians are the best thing that you can do for your creative process. Everything else is secondary. And this is why we've created our platform as is. And you're right. The thing about a music AI distribution is totally controversial, and it should be. It should be, because there's a lot of content. Spotify published that more than 35% of the content published today is AI. And I think most of it is not tagged. I can tell you that I put a kind of a playlist, like a random playlist for jazz. And the first song was nice. And then the second song came, the third song, and I realized that it was all AI.
Oh, bro.
It was all AI. I have the ear to listen and kind of understand right away. It was kind of stuck on the same melodic frame over and over again, like, and it was a bit heartbreaking, because when a teenager will want to hear amazing, music, they should listen to the great jazz players. They don't need to listen to something generated. Um, and I agree with you completely, but this is kind of where Aiode differs. Because when you're creating with Aiode, you're not creating a whole song. You can't create a full song with Aiode, but you can try really, really, really hard. It's going to take a lot of time, hours and hours. It's going to be like building a full arrangement for a project yourself using, plugins and VSTs, only using plugins and VSTs. And that's mostly what's happening today when people don't have access to musicians. They're using either samples or plugins.
Yeah.
So that's the something that we want to get into, because you're using already something. You're using something that somebody created. But if you can work with that somebody, that you can kind of create something that is tailor made to your project. And the best use case with Aiode is for you to start with a track. It can be vocals, it can be pads, it can be idea that you hummed, ooh, something that you're starting with. So the musicians can have an idea, because Aiode is built around the fire, the kind of congregation of musicians. So when you're working in a session and you have a few musicians in a studio, what do? You start by playing the thing that you have, or explaining the idea, right? Not in a verbal sense most of the time, but you're saying, mm-hmm, or you're humming something, or you're playing something yourself. And this is the best way to work in Aiode. We've built this so this it will feel like a digitized session in a way, right? And it's current, and it's not that these musicians are not real musicians. These are real musicians that you tap into just through AI. So most of the use of Aiode is through organically in a song. That's something that you already created and you need to complete, and you need to build and arrange, like you're doing with Contact Lab, with other plugins, with Splice, with Wisties. So if
Respectfully, I mean, respectfully, it's not exactly the same, right? Because when you use virtual instruments, you create melodies, right? You have to, of course, you don't have to be like a professional, how to say, musician. You don't have to be taught classical, like classically, but you design them, you don't generate, you just have to take the keyboard or like, I don't know, any controller and, type and that's, I think I would say that's the threshold that you need to be able to create something from scratch, right? And I think technology, I mean, not just AI, I think in a lot of technologies, which I mean, I have a big problem in general. I mean, honestly, it's not about AI. Is that a lot of tech companies promise, like a how to say frictionless process, which actually, very well, music. It's not. I mean, on any art, it's not about frictionless. Art is
it's
actually like a
about the
painful
friction,
process, right?
actually. It's
Sorry,
about the friction.
it's about the
It's
friction,
about the
exactly.
friction.
Yeah.
It's
So,
about the thing of creating something new, kind of with your heart,
mhm,
with your hard work and sweat and tears. But the thing is, you're right. If you're going into, virtual instruments and you're starting to build there, what you need is to refine something yourself. And that's one of the next step of Aiode. One of
mm,
the things we'll be announcing soon is a new feature that's going to give you exactly that.
okay,
So to answer your question, we're exactly going towards that direction. And
okay.
when you want something that's already built, where do you go to? You go to a sample pack, right?
Mhm,
It's not something that you've created. It's not something, you know, it's
true.
something somebody else generated. And I can tell you today that my Spice won't say it, but some of the content generated in all of the sample libraries today is generated content. It's not even generated, meaning AI content, not even real musicians on playing. So
Mhm,
it's like going into Shutterstock and creating Gemini photo, like, or Nano Banana photos,
mhm,
and somebody else is buying them, and it's practically the same, and it's something that we see as a phenomena, and it's gonna spread more and more and more. So
yeah.
when I'm saying I think there's a lot of difference between generating something that is kind of a singular song that you've created fully, and kind of dismantling the craftsmanship of a professional producer, or at least a bedroom producer, because they're, let's say, kind of threshold that somebody who really wants to create and have the ability and some of the knowledge to do that. I think it's really, really different. I think there's um, already tools in place today that you do that. Most of the music created today is done without musicians, and musicians are not remunerated for that. That's why more than 65% of UK musicians do not earn enough money. Professional musicians do not earn enough money from their work to make ends meet. And we see this. This is real data from 2024. Okay.
Mm.
Maybe not
Well, I
2026.
mean, that's everywhere. Yeah, absolutely. I can see that, generally artists, musicians, and others, yeah, they struggle. I mean, yeah, generating like a new revenue stream for artists, that's definitely like a noble, cause. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not even a noble cause. We think it's necessary. If we want to make sure that we're not living in a space that has the same music over and over and over and over again, we need human creativity. The only way today to connect people through human creativity is either for them to create Zooms for themselves. Then there's amazing, and there's a lot of different collaborations tools today that help you do that. And that's an amazing sector by itself. But if it's not that, it's only through the most advanced technologies. And the most advanced technologies today is AI. So we kind of need to differentiate between the different tools, because there's amazing tools today and there's less than amazing tools today.
Mhm.
And we kind of need to when a user comes to choose what they want to use for their production needs, they really need to understand that there's some that are going to stay and continue kind of developing the artist relationship, and there are some who are only looking for the monetization of the generated content. That's all.
Listen, I mean, I mean, we had this conversation before, but I mean, yeah, I just realized that, of course, one can be, how to say, like, reject, what's actually going on currently in life, or try to somehow fix it. And I can see there is so many, like, so more and more people create music. And actually, on the other hand, you have professionals, musicians, like you say, who struggle, like, with making their, and, make a living. Yeah, so I understand that it's actually a great way to connect those two in like a big new way for creators with actually professional musicians. I mean, I understand that a lot of these bedroom producers, they wouldn't go to the professional musician anyway, and they just fond of creating something with samples and with some MIDI controllers, etc. So I can understand right now, I don't want to be this elitarian person. Okay, so, we only do this in the studio, and if you don't play,
I wish this was like, when I came to this, I thought this is gonna be my battle, right? That I'm gonna need to say to people, you know, musicians are great, but use technology. And then I realized it's the opposite way around. What I realized about music, it's a very segregated kind of field, and there's kind of small networks that don't communicate between each other. Mostly don't communicate it between each other. So if you have one musician here and another producer there, and they can be an amazing fit, they might never meet because they don't have the connections. They don't have the kind of networking. You're kind of isolated bubble, and
exactly. I
and
know exactly what you mean. And I can see that this through technologies and through platforms, obviously rightly positioned and rightly communicated, it can be great way for, for many people actually for the first time experience having, let's say, a musician in the session, and who knows. And I mean, I remember interviewing Paul McCabe, who is the head of the future design lab at Roland, and he says, well, I mean, he was not talking about the music, he was talking about his family. I think his daughter, who used to make photos just for, I don't know, social media, to later actually realize how great actually photography is, and step up and go towards the professional photography. And I can see the technology can be rightly positioned. The technology can be the same way for artists, for producers, for artists. So one, first of all, it can be a great way to experience creativity for the first time, and how amazing it is actually to give birth to something, and then maybe even to spark this desire to, like create a
Totally.
band or like a work with musicians. Actually, this
Totally.
happened to me. My first album was actually, well, I mean, earlier in '80s, I was actually making music on the instruments. One of the albums, my EP that I just published like 2 or 3 years ago, it was like with virtual instruments. So then I just had access to violinists who I once recorded in the university, and she, as a to return the favor, she replace my virtual instruments with her, playing violin, which is obviously to completely blew my mind. And then I just realized that I can, with the next album, which actually I'm planning right now, I want to step up and say, this time actually I will replace, more virtual instruments with the session musicians. And, I really would like to avoid this like a flat, drums with some real kick and
Real
snare,
thing.
so I can see just, like a slowly stepping up, and I can see that technology can, for many people, be this kind of, like a way to step up
Yeah,
into the
there's a lot of people using drum machines, right? AI drum machines that are embedded in some of the tools, and the thing is, they can give you like a good rhythmic, like very stable rhythmic part, but it's not interesting in any way most of the time. It's not gonna be. It's
Well,
not gonna be.
I think the drum machines were initially invented to do only like rehearsals, and somebody, hey, why not making tracks? And all '80s and '90s was, like with, again, Roland drum machines become so iconic, right? And
Yeah.
nobody actually initially expected this to be like a
But
real instrument.
that shows you kind of how things develop, that people want that new thing, that people want um that shortcut, because it is a shortcut in some ways, because to set up like a full set of drums with all the mics is a hassle. We all know that. When we recorded the Eldar Moshe, it was one of the hardest recordings we had to do because of the mic surroundings and the full setup that we needed to do around that. Mm, But it's needed, it's needed, so in the end we can give a control just for the snare or the kick, or um and that's what you want. You want to control just the snare. You want to give that kind of a feel. And that the fact that you had a violinist in your midst, that you can kind of send your song and get that back, that's amazing. That's amazing.
We could even close ourselves in the studio, which was like for the first time, like a recording with the such a, like a experience and recognized musician, was actually pretty intimidating, I would say. Not that I didn't play like earlier in '80s and '90s, but I mean, still, it was like so cool to such a cool experience, and I want more. But listen, I know AI is actually interesting. Generally, technology and like changes in the technology is, like such a cool topic that we can probably spend an hour, another
Hours.
or hours talking about. And I still wanted to, initially, as you know, talk about the marketing and
Yes, for
marketing
sure.
and Aiode and generally marketing. And I wanted to ask you about the difference, between like a marketing in wider tech and marketing in music. You work in both, industries, and I'm curious about what you think about what is the difference. I had the pleasure of interviewing marketing people already, but they spend most of their career on one or the other. And
Mhm.
I know you have a comparison, so I'm curious what's your
It's
pers-
it's really it's really interesting. I think music tech is a kind of a unique field. I think it's most characterized kind of thing. It's that it's not B2B and it's not B2C, because it's not a hobby, because you don't want to treat people as this is their hobby. It's their work. It's their soul. It's their passion. But the behavior, the consumer behavior, is more of a B2C kind of a behavior, where they take their kind of inspiration from. how they react to things. You see, it's a lot more B2C than a kind of on a B2B spectrum. So
Mhm.
there's a term kind of that was embedded just a few years ago called prosumerism.
Mhm.
And that's the exact kind of term for music tech. In my opinion, mostly music tech that is pushed for music creators. And I want to differentiate between music creators and musicians because that's all mixed together, music
Mhm.
creators and musicians. But there's some difference, and you see that in different companies where you approach musicians, it's easier. They're more acceptant of tools. And
Mm.
when you go to music producers, music creators, first of all, if you're coming from a very known position, this is something that you know, this is a VST, this is a plugin, this is something. It's really easy for them to get this because they, like a lot of other fields, this is not a new tech. They realize this. You don't need to invest a lot in market education for something new. This is why I think most music AI companies start from the non-professional and go to the professional, because it's easier for them to kind of test this on a wider crowd and then kind of optimize it towards a more professional crowd. It's kind of going from B2C to B2B and going back to from B2B to B2C again. Um, uh, but it's really interesting because you see that music creators are really adamant about their tools. You don't see a lot of music producers change DAWs.
Mhm.
They might work on different DAWs simultaneously for different needs. They won't completely abandon one DAW, even if it's not, you know, is totally suited for them. If this is what they learned initially, this is what they're gonna be loyal to for the rest of their lives. And the music tech crowd is super loyal, in my opinions,
Mhm.
for products that are assimilated with their values, right? So Avid, for example, is has this amazing crowd because it gave a specific value, and it's always kind of updating that value and kind of chasing what's going to be the best for their users in a very changing economics. But the loyalty is always going to be there, and you see that. um so when somebody is hooked on something, it becomes an amazing loyal customer. I think that's one of the amazing things about music tech. I think it has a fandoms, right? Much more than most verticals. I don't see a lot of fintech companies who has fans saying, "Yay, I love this company," but you see this, yeah, right. You don't have you don't have a cyber company or maybe they have like developers who are super adamant about the product, and again, that's also a fandom, that's a community, that's advocacy, and that's really important in both fields. That's kind of something that correlates. um, the second thing I learned quite early on, in my opinion, and feel free to kind of contradict me on that, is in my opinion, music creator and professional music creators are very similar to developers in character in some way, um, because they're high proficient in what they do, right? They need a lot of tools to make a really good job in what they do, and they're both online most of the day. They're very into kind of investigating and researching new tools, new opportunities, something that kind of help them kind of complete their journey. Um, and a lot of music, more professional mixologists, mastering people I heard of, they use a lot of the word of programming, right? They feel they're programming a track in towards something. They see this as a tedious kind of work of perfection, of perfecting something, which a lot of developers that I know have worked with have felt the same. So in some ways, I think some of the tech world, and I see a lot of also, if you would draw a Venn diagram, I would say there's a lot of developers that are music creators more than other verticals in the fields because you know, um, from synth builders that kind of help. I think we are all coming from, all the music tech geeks are coming from the kind of same AV nerds of the 80s that were kind of all into that kind of all the equipment and amplifiers, all that jazz. And I love this as a girl, as a young girl. And and if you saw the movie Revenge of the Nerds,
Yes, yes. I didn't
it's an
see.
80s movies. It's a cult American movies. A lot of stars came from this kind of from this movie, and what they do, they're all kind of nerds, AV nerds, programming nerds, and they finish this and they become cool by becoming the musicians that they wanted to be, right? And I think that's a really classic example of kind of a subgroup. I can't generalize this for all producers or all music creators out there. And I think the term music creator is growing by the minute because of streaming, because of different distribution methods, because of social media. But the core of like professional producers has that kind of overlap with the development kind of tech environment. And I see that a lot today.
Can I ask you the question? Because I was curious. You mentioned a lot of the music creators are like spend online and like research tools, and this is one I would probably like contradict too. But I mean, I just wanted to understand what you know, maybe which group do you mean? Because yeah,
I
to
think from what I see, a lot of music creators go online and they're friends in communities. They're kind of
okay.
in either Discord, Facebook community, school. They watch specific people, producers go
Mm-hmm.
online, introduce new
Mm-hmm.
tools, showcase or this different tools. Like there's a lot of creator influencers who what they do, then that's half of their what they do for a living is kind of either advocate or this different tools that they see online. Some of them, let's be honest, get paid to say, hey, this is a great tool. And some of them are really authentic about what we do. I can tell you that in Aiode, we we don't want people to kind of say, hey, this is the most amazing tool you'll ever have. And this is something we're against with our creators. We all one of the things that we always do is with new creators who want to publish with us and do videos with us, we always say, did you try the tool? Do you understand it? Do you like it? Do whatever you want. Even if you want to diss us, it's your choice. If you want to tag us, I'm not sure we'll accept the tag, but do it authentically. Like if you want to come and get money just by saying this is the best AI for professional producers, musicians, whatever, I'm not interested. I'm sorry, because it's against my agenda, and our agenda is to be authentic, real, for people to really understand what they're getting and not just come into a platform they think has, you know, everything is amazing, because no tool is amazing. No tool is perfect. It can be amazing, but not perfect. And I don't want to give that illusion. I don't think any AI is perfect. The perfect thing is an imperfection of humanity, of creativity.
That's You see, I was like last week. I was to Helsinki for a meetup. We're
Yeah.
organizing the meetup for product teams in audio
Mhm.
companies, and I was like, I landed in Warsaw at midnight, so I had to still travel home. So I was just driving for 4 hours. I mean, until 4
Oh,
a.m.
wow.
And I was like listening to the radio, and there was actually a very interesting conversation. There was about AI, but in the literature. So there was like a professional translator and two professor of literature talking about the AI and how AI can excel or probably cannot excel in like translating the poetry. They were just giving some really funny examples about the like a real translation. I wrote some Danish poetry, right? And yeah, so yeah, like you say, there are some places where technology can excel because it's so like I would say edge case and nuanced and
I
yeah
hope it will
and
never excel, actually. To be honest, I don't think, I think what, and I see this with, we use Cloud Code and we experiment in house with all kinds of different AI tools. And I think what's going to be the biggest differentiator between human and AI is innovation, is thinking about something completely new. Because AI is cumulative and it's instruction based. You need to understand, I come from marketing AI back in 2019 when it was in its really early stages. And I was in a cyber company called Sabers. And we and you need to understand the origins of AI to understand today what are their capabilities, because it's kind of built on the same building blocks. AI is rooted from the kind of thing that you have a database, right? You have a database, and that database is kind of the memory, but it's not always like this elastic memory like we have. um, and how our memory is saving things in groups. I'm a psychology major, so how your uh, how your brain kind of save things is, most of the time it's clustered, but it's clustered under totally different tags, and it can change between groupings. Something that AI has a lot of trouble doing, kind of reclassifying something. So you, for example, when you give AI an instruction and you give it a re-instruction and it's not doing it, it's sometimes because of its the problem of reclassifying something, right? And because it really depends on which LLM you're kind of talking to, if it's Claude, because they have different base models and different. So, for example, OpenAI is more based on the reaction from humans, while Claude is based on kind of specific guidelines of what's right and wrong, and kind of that helps the differentiation. So but the clustering of answer is going to be always averaged to kind of a median, yeah.
that's the
While
case. Yeah,
humanity is kind of all over the place, and that's the key for innovation. The kind of all over the place is the key for innovation, because the trial of and error is what help us kind of move forward and evolve and kind of and continue, because this is how nature is also doing evolution, by trial and error. We have mutation, 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 and then something sticks, and it sticks because it has a need, it has a purpose. And things that don't have a purpose die down, or I don't know, get destroyed, or whatever. Today we live in a very different age than 300 and 400 years ago, so evolution looks very different today, but it still relies on the same principles. And it's also tied to marketing, because when you understand how an AI is built, you know how to market it correctly and what's its limitations. So when
that's what I
you
wanted
think,
to ask about. How to market AI. That was I'm super curious about it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so you I don't recommend going to AI marketing if you don't take the time to understand what are you marketing specifically, what is the technology, because AI is everybody is saying AI, AI, AI. When most of the people say AI, it's ubiquitous to an experience of a dashboard where you have a prompt line and you get something back, right? That's kind of what we were educated to think AI is. And this paradigm is slowly shifting because people and companies um, understand that this is not the only use. It's the easiest use to give to a user because we already did the market education for this. So if Aiode went into something that is fully text prompt, maybe I had an easier time marketing Aiode, right? Because people know how to use this off the bat. Okay, I go in, I text, I start prompting something, and that's it. But it's not how producers work, right? You don't go to a musician. I want you to create a song in the style of Beyonce with the tempo of Chick Corea. Okay, so I would have went really off the bat there. So kind of you don't really do that, and AI in different fields look very much different. In cyber, it looks very much different. AI for cyber is a brain, but I'm diverting. When you're kind of thinking about marketing in AI and you're coming today with a new product, you first need to understand that there was somebody who did the market education before you. And if you're doing something that is different, that you need to re-educate the market, that there is a different way, there's a better way to do this. And this is something we worked heavily in Aiode, and then came other products and kind of went with the same flow and the same kind of product experience. We were very happy about that the market is shifting towards that. So that's the first. The second thing, and I think this is part of what I came with Aiode, um, it's the ethics of it. So today, I think one of the one of the biggest problems that we have with AI is the databases, right? So if you look at the lawsuits, and I won't mention companies, but there's
Never mind.
different lawsuits about different copyrights and how data is used. If more and more companies continue doing that, what will be what will happen is we're gonna have something that is either very biased towards something. It's either very generic because everybody is trying, and at the end we'll get to a point where new music is gated. Because you see that in music AI today with a lot of different tools to allow you to take somebody else's song and add that to kind of a prompt experience and work on that and change the vocals, change something, and republish this as their own song. And we see this happening a lot today. So we don't want to get to the gated place. So what do? You think of a different narrative. So AI is all about understanding what are the customers, what are the problems, and how do you fit into the narrative? How do you create a new narrative that is completely different from what has been done before or completely identical? If it's completely identical, you have competitors, you understand the market, there are already proven strategies. It's something that you can duplicate really, really easily. But if you're a startup that's doing something completely innovative, then you need to invest a lot in educating the market that there is another way. As we say in Star Wars, this is the way, right?
Mhm.
This is the way to do things in a better environment, in an ethical environment, in a professional way. So one of the first things after kind of researching the market when I came into Aiode about 2.5 years ago was to kind of understand how other companies have already created ubiquity around what is music AI. Because if you write kind of, if I would wake you up in the middle of the night and I say, what is music AI for you? I can tell you that 9 out of 10 people would say the same thing. It's creating full songs, generating full songs from a prompt.
On this pollen, I
I
would
won't
say
say
data
that.
on.
I won't say that. There are some generators that are
Well,
ethical
yeah, true.
on the
I'm saying what
fields.
people would say. I mean, if I talk to people, most of the people actually that's what they associate with the big brands and these controversial companies who will actually only agreed to pay when they were sued. You know, so that's I think what
I
people
agree with you.
generally associate with AI.
I
Yeah.
agree with you, but that's actually a differentiator between professional and non-professional users, because non-professional users don't know and don't care. Most professional, non-professional users, the guy who wants to build a song for their daughter's birthday or to make a laugh at the coworker, they don't know. They don't go into that deep of understanding of what's the tool that they're using, because it's not in their vertical, it's not in their kind of space of or vision. And I think what music professionals has that the rest of the market doesn't have is really an insight into that. And I think the music tech and music professionals of today are going to shift the market. They're going to decide where the market goes, not the full spectrum, because they have the insight as to what are the tools really about. They care enough to understand who is doing what and how and where. And if this is something that has artifacts, is performable, if it gives value or not, and just something out of fun, like a hobby thing. And I think that's kind of a big differentiator that's going on in the market. I think this is where we're positioned as Aiode. I got when we started this, there's a Newton Rex with the ferry train. We've talked to him about his initiative. He's a really sharp and smart guy, and his advocacy towards regulation is incredible. Um, but we wanted to kind of partner with fair trade, and it took them time, and we really had to kind of state what is Aiode. And for a big part, we were kind of debating, and we were talking to some of our partners and saying we need to talk about how we build our technology. That's one of our biggest differentiators. How we build the technology, how we build the business model is one of Aiode's biggest differentiator. And then we started embedding the term ethical AI. And actually, that became synonymous to Aiode, and that's something I'm super grateful for. This was a move that we were thinking we just need to say what we are, and it came out this way. And then music lawyers turned to us, and our CEO Idan, which you'll talk to in the next episode. He's a lawyer by trade, so he would explain kind of the whole the whole legal part because behind what we're doing and why this is so important kind of to be facing out. And I say this a lot, but marketing can be a show, right? It's a show that kind of helps you understand something and gets you into things. But I urge everybody using new tools of AI today also to check what they're signing, because there's a big differentiator there between different user agreements in different kind of platforms. And this is something not everybody understands. I see this a lot in professional Reddit kind of groups and in professional Facebook groups and Discords, but most of the majority of the population doesn't do that. So creating something valuable with AI is hard. And you need to first create awareness for that. And then you need to change the narrative and the paradigm around that. And you kind of need to crunch in that ubiquity that we just talked about is what music AI and kind of nibble into that. But not in a way that would be relevant for the general audience, but something that would be relevant for your audience and for us that are professional music creators. So we kind of tailored our messaging and we worked with former label music executives and indie musicians. And we did a lot of surveys with musicians and music producers about our messaging. Sorry, before we kind of push that into the world. And that was after a lot of thinking, of a lot of work of how are we not going to be immediately rejected. And I can tell you the first 6 months when we were in closed beta was one of the most I would answer all of the comments. If you would see Aiode commenting you, it was me, even if I was harsh. And there were a lot of trolls that I would banter with on a regular basis because it's my fun. But it's kind of we got a lot of hate in the beginning, a lot of hate because of that kind of controversial place, because of that ubiquitous place. However, once we started explaining what we do and kind of putting out there that this is what we do and this is our business model and this is where we're aiming for and this is what our vision, this is where the narrative started to change. And we saw the comments being softer. When we were replying and explaining what we do, we got a lot of DMs. We got a lot of praise. We started seeing more and more users starting using the platform after talking to us and kind of understanding that this is something different in the landscape. And we're still compared to some of the, to other tools, and that's natural. Our mind is always looking for the comparison to understand kind of how does this fit in
How
the
can you
overall.
cluster things? Yes.
Yes, how do we cluster this, right? We talked about this in the beginning. To what cluster am I putting you in? And it's really hard to kind of create a new cluster. But I think in some ways we did that. We see a lot of other companies today. When I have a confession to make. When I am every Monday morning when I get to work, I have a 30-minute slot. That's what I do. It's silly, but I have kind of AI kind of crawl and check different messaging from our website and our materials that we've built ourselves and see if other companies just copy pasted us and use that. And we see that more and more. I see that more and more from the when we started. There was nobody talking about ethics in music AI. Now half the companies that I see are saying ethical AI, ethical AI. So that was really funny when we started seeing that as something that's being kind of trying to protect it. And we still see that. We still see that be, people want something new. And when you have something new, you have value. And when you have a good narrative and you have a good product, it's obvious that people want to kind of nibble into that. Like we are trying to nibble into and kind of take from music AI to professional music AI to kind of have people understanding. But we don't do that from kind of taking the narrative. We do that by building our own narrative. I think that's kind of a differentiator that's really important for marketing today.
So, like, talking about the more, like some, channels and, like a growth engine for the company, can you like shed some light? What's, the, how you actually, like a marketing operations, we're talking more about the philosophy and strategy. And
Yes.
I'm curious about, what works for a company like Aiode from the marketing's perspective, so what are the channels and what's actually,
So first of all, I think our our partnership and support from Abbey Road is also helpful in the marketing aspect for sure, because people understand that uh, that a huge and really important and very regulated studio is choosing us as something that they can trust and
Hmm.
something they can back and something that they feel that they can support. So that's a big thing. And I think that talks to something that's really in the core of marketing. And you said channels and what's working. When you're building a product, a startup, you need to first of all convey trust. So I think one of the biggest things that I am thankful are two things: are our partnerships and the community that we've been building for the last 2 years. And we see that, and people can come and go into our community, and that's normal. It's normal, but we see people that go through our community come out a bit different. And I think that's a big part of marketing, like making a change through the community and through the product. And so for us, one of the biggest channels was community and advocacy. And we see that with creator content, and we see that, of course, we support this with PPC efforts and kind of different PPC channels from Meta to TikTok to Google and others. Um, I can tell you that one of the things that we're currently working on, and it's something that we're building, is pushing users that created with Aiode and published their music that it was created with Aiode into Spotify, and kind of helping people see that this can be another way to create with assistive AI and not replacing AI. So that's kind of some of the channels that we're using. Um, we are also, again, I think one of the key things of a product in AI is that trust that you're creating. And of course, the marketing aspect and the messaging. So that's kind of the biggest things that we've been doing. Um, but of course, I think the biggest were Abbey Road, socials. I think today, as we talked before, one of the key things is being for creating awareness by people experiencing the tool. So we have a lot of creators that have approached us. We've given them licenses for Aiode. They've tested us and they've decided if they want to advocate for us or not. Most of them do want to advocate for us. We're very thankful for that. And this is a big part of creating awareness for a product in AI today.
How big is Aiode right now? How many people?
We're 15 people,
People.
kind of a global team, international, from Brazil to Israel to the UK, where we have it all.
Gotcha. And is do you have like anybody already helping you out on marketing? Because it's still like a pretty small team. So, or
So today the marketing team is comprised from me, and I have Eliran, our community manager, who's doing a fantastic job. And we have an army of freelancers that is supporting us on different kind of sectors and things that we require from design and
performance marketing.
to PPC to SEO, GEO, AEO, and all the acronyms you can think of. We have them.
CEO, Geo, etc. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool, great. And can you shed? I mean, I don't want to, like ask for a specific number, but how many like creators already like use IoD? Is it? Are you
Yeah,
able to?
since our open beta, we have more than 50,000
Wow.
users that have created with Aiode,
Mm,
and that's a growing number, of course. I can give it's almost it's more closer to 100, but I can't give the specific number
Mhm.
to date. We're really proud of that because in a very short time, our open beta just started 9 months ago. So in that 9 months, we were able to kind of push for more than 50 people, for 50,000 people to use Aiode and kind of generate with Aiode and get their experience with Aiode. So we're very happy about that. Um, and we see that, uh, well, we see that a lot of the users that choose to kind of generate, um, and they're in the ICP that we want, for example, they're singer songwriter producers, they stay, and they don't use Aiode every day, not all of them, but we see weekly and monthly uses of Aiode for sure. We have a free tier. So everybody that wants to experience Aiode for the first time and gonna get that market education feel to kind of understand how to work with a different tool in the AI space, they can go and experiment for themselves. They get free tokens. They get all the features open. They just can download and don't have a license, a publishing license. Then they're limited in the amount of model channels and audio channels that they can create. But they can get the understanding, and all of the models are open for them, so they can experience everything. And then they can choose if they want a license or not. But we really support that you need to understand what you're doing. Like when you're taught a DAW for the first time. Either you go into a YouTube channel and you're kind of starting off by your own and kind of cringing that, or you go into a school, you go into production school, you take a course, you take a class, or if you want to go into deeper, you learn music, musicology, you know, music theory. And that's the way we treat Aiode. It's not for people who don't have experience. We see that people don't have experience and they want to create something out of thin air. They don't manage with Aiode, and that's okay. We accept that because that's not our target audience. We're looking for the creators who have that experience and have that kind of learning experience already had. Um, so yes,
And are paid tier subscriptions, right?
yes, we have two paid tier subscriptions today, and we're gonna launch maybe new packaging towards the end of the year. We
Uh-huh.
have the Pro, which is currently 19.99 monthly, and that gives you access to everything and anything unlimited and more than not more 5 hours of music generated and
I see.
stems generated through the platform, which
I
is
see.
a
No, I'm
lot.
asking about subscription because I know again that a lot of like people in the music community are, how to say, to like not to be too rude. They don't
They
like
don't like
subscription
subscriptions.
subscriptions. Let's be honest.
They
Yeah, yeah.
don't like subscriptions. I get that. However, I see a lot of different VSTs and plugin companies
They do that.
kind
Yeah.
of pushing towards that. And I think that's going to be the new norm.
You
For
think so?
an AI
Okay.
for an AI
Especially.
company,
Hmm?
I can say we can't live without a subscription or something that is use based. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're reliant on tokens, on a tokenized model. If I need to know that you spend this amount of token, then that's worth amount. So we can create the whole ecosystem of the revenue sharing from the operational standpoints of what's the inference costing us, the
Mm-hmm.
operational technical inference of the inferences, and the remuneration of the artist. We have two kind of layers, even more that we need to look at when we're kind of building this business model. However, today, if you look at this, most of the subscription or Aiode subscription, you can take the and yearly plan, and it's gonna cost you roughly the same as a good plugin. So if you look at this in a way that this is gonna cost you yearly and you're gonna use this for a year, you're getting more of your money's worth with a subscription most of the times than with a real plugin. Because
No, no,
There's a
I
lot
was,
of
I mean, get what you mean. I mean, I just I was just curious how you are sort of, what is your experience with subscription? I understand that obviously like a usage base, you can either go with the subscription or tokens, it's just like a little bit different than desktop, solutions like those or plugins. On the other, I would even say more. I'm actually,
Oh, for sure. We had a lot of backlash on that. Like, to be honest, we had a lot of backlash. Why can't we buy this one time? Like,
how? Yeah. How?
again, the B2C here is so prominent of, we don't want a subscription, we just want to have an e-commerce experience, right? At the
Mm.
e-commerce where I shop, I buy a program, I download it to my computer, and I go from there. The thing is, in the ecosystem of cloud and not hardware, it's going to be totally different, and the pricing
Uh,
needs to be totally different.
that's exactly what what I am saying this. But I was just trying to say that I also have like a conflicting thoughts, because on one hand I am a user, and I would say even typical user, so I have always the same sort of negative feelings towards certain practices in the music industry. On the other hand, I'm long enough in the tech, to understand that even if you build desktop solutions, like plugins, people usually don't understand that it's not just like you build it once and you forget about it and you sell it once. You have compatibility, Apple makes the updates to their operating systems. Windows do the same. Your plugin stopped working. People complain. And, how can I provide support if I
Also,
cannot
like
get a recurring revenue, right?
some plugins charge you for an update. So you have an update for a plugin, and then you
Yeah.
need to pay. What is it? The difference between paying and your new yearly subscription? It's almost the same. The fact that it's a mirage that the tech company has been kind of facilitating because it's easier to do that. Because it's rooted, again, if we talk about the ubiquity and market education, Microsoft embedded that in the 70s and 80s, how software sales needs to be. And that's, you buy not a subscription, you buy a package, you downloaded it, and then you pay for the updates, right? Every time Microsoft needed an update, you had to pay something or the license or something like that. And you see Microsoft is now moving to a subscription basis from building a physical product. And I think that's like the representation of the whole software industry.
But you know
In
what?
general.
I mean, there is one caveat here. So with the, let's say, with the perpetual licenses, you pay and you own, and even if you decide not to upgrade, the risk is on you. If some, I don't know, updates will crash your software. With the subscription, you never own it. So the problem is here that you are actually being fucked up. Sorry for the expression, but I mean, I honestly think, like with Office 365, I still own my own old Office, which I bought, like a perpetual license. It still works, So, I mean, I needed obviously 365 because I need SharePoint, I need OneDrive, I need more like a, how to say, reputable, like a.
So do you pay a subscription?
Yeah, I do
as
pay
well?
a subscription. I do pay a subscription, but I mean, honestly, I still believe why people hate subscriptions, because you're just like you know, I mean, I'm going to be disconnected, right, from the service when the moment I stop paying, So I would actually envision, some kind of like a middle ground. I understand. What I'm trying to say is that I completely understand that companies need like a recurring revenue to provide, like a quality software and hardware, by the way, as well. You need to fix bugs, you need to provide support. So I'm not the person, let's say, perpetual and make it forever free, because this means the user never actually work in the software in the first place, and he, like expects miracles. Nobody does things for free. I have to pay software developers, but on the other hand, the model,
By
where
the way, that's not true in the music tech industry. A lot of people expect to get things for free. And one of the biggest things that DAW companies, plugin companies experience
yes,
is hacking, right? People hack the program so
yeah,
they can get it for free, and that's a big part of the industry. And that's also a big part of the motivation to move to a subscription base. It comes from both the users, But if you want to talk really deep into this, this comes also from the investors. Like the investors field, if you look at new companies and new startups, they would prefer something called an annual recurring revenue and not just revenue, right? They would pretty much prefer, and you see this as Netflix won over Blockbuster, and you see this with Apple, and you see this with Google, and you see this with all the tech giants. They kind of perpetualized that the ARR is a key component into a success of a company. Or
It's understandable, right? You need to have a stable like a income in order to like grow the team and etc. etc. I can clearly understand that, but I mean, and I understand that a lot of like I experienced this like I create a podcast and meetups etc. And people ask me where is this, where is that, just get used to certain resources for free, right? And I sometimes ask, hey, can you just make even like a small donation so we keep going? I hire people etc. I get sometimes, a bit frustrated that, like people are very used to, just free content and it stays so like a valuable. I say, so why don't you just, pay a small subscription so we can keep going? I'm not even thinking of like making it into a business, but just so I can, do the post-production
support this.
properly and yeah, etc. etc. Yeah. Sometimes
Things cost money. Like this podcast makes money, the equipment, the
yeah.
your time and kind of energy alone, but all the productions cost money.
Yeah.
Creating content costs money. People don't always understand that.
Yeah. I mean, but still, I understand that in AI, it's actually like a completely different thing because you have an infrastructure, you have models, and it's just like how can you give, you cannot just like upload this to somebody's computer. It's just in order this to work, has to be. Well, probably there can be local models, but yeah, but it's a different, yeah. There's like small models and yeah.
So you will always need an internet connection. And I think that's the differentiator. It can be offline, opposed to different things that you can work on online, like offline. You can work on your DAW offline, that no matter in a flight. You can't work with an AI modem in a flight unless you have Wi-Fi.
Most
But
those you need to have a connection to, right? I mean, unless you have a dongle, right? iLog, like for Pro Tools, but most actually those right now, I mean, I know Steinberg moved to this like a online licensing, so you need to be connected in order to work, right? So your license is being checked.
so that's a really deep conversation, but it really depends on what type of DAW and what kind of licensing do you have. And again, you see the DAWs when you say Steinberg is moving to an online version, that this move means that they're moving towards a subscription based for sure, and not towards something that is a one-time payment or a one-time payment with updates and add-ons. And again, I think this is kind of both a trend, a kind of management request, and also something that's also helpful in fitting into a more cloud-based infrastructure. I'm as somebody who has been working in cloud and fintech, in cyber, and now today with AI, I can tell you that part of understanding where you're going to, and this is what you said yourself, is understanding what's the revenue component. And if in the past, and you look at like big companies like Amazon, they were based on a purchase. E-com is based on, I buy this, and that's my margin, that's the revenue, that's the cost of acquisition, that's the cost of goods sold, and then you have the bottom line. And that's something that's hard to predict. You can predict fluctuations in some ways, but it's something that's harder to predict than a subscription based model business. And that stability helps actually companies who do have a decent ARR raise more money, because they say, okay, so I can understand the trajectory of what's this business model, of how this is going, what it's going towards. So, for example, maybe Steinberg, and I don't know, I don't have any inside information, maybe they want to invest, they want to procure more money from either the public or from investors.
Part of Yamaha Group, so I don't think they just like misman. I think it's mostly like this dongle experience, it's really like a, from like, it's pretty shitty. It's just, if you look at the like a, like customer onboarding and, like a, and first time user experience, a lot. I mean, iLock, right? How it looks like. It's obviously like a super powerful technology in terms of encryption, and obviously it protects, I know people say this just, yeah, the pace, yes, it's still, I think, superior to anything on the market, but their like user interface looks like some, like a Windows from early 90s, etc. So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that a lot of companies like a think of just like improving this. Yeah, but I'm just curious to see,
They
because you mentioned.
should. They should, because there's now a huge new generation. Most of the world population is maturing, right? But you have like this big last chunk of people that are age 14 to 25, who are now really into music, and they are super computer and internet proficient because they grew up into it.
With internet already, yeah, and
And they are much less forgiving for a bad UI, because because this is what they're living. And I
Mhm.
think this is a really big part of creating tools for the new generation. You need to have a good user experience. If you have like this old and outdated, this can be amazing for a very niche specific audience that loves nostalgia, that's really connected to nostalgia. Maybe this is part of your marketing to talk to that nostalgia, but that can, if not done really precise and really right, that can be an Achilles heel, because that can create an onboarding issue.
yeah,
And that's
absolutely.
the worst part of PLG. If you want a product led growth strategy, that the product is kind of the heart of the marketing itself, then you need a very good onboarding experience. And if you don't have that, that's ay ay ay.
Yes, I mean, it actually accidentally like spark another question in my head. So you understand you're trying like you're applying PLG strategy, right? You're making sure that, are you trying also like to make this like a frictionless onboarding and the product sort of to sell itself? Is this what you're
Uh,
doing with
so
the?
I can't disclose our full strategy, but I
Mhm,
can say that PLG is part of our strategy overall.
mhm,
The fact that we have a free tier that doesn't need any credit card is by itself a frictionless kind of
mhm,
environment that you can just go in and try.
mhm,
Uh, the fact that you can register from mobile and then go back to your desktop and kind of continue there, and you already have the link to gotta go to the website or download the desktop app. These are things that are required today in a very modern tech savvy world. And we want to facilitate it to that. And we want to make the onboarding as easy as possible. So all companies use today social onboarding, which is like you can just click on Gmail and that's it, and you're logged in if you have a Gmail. And we have a short questionnaire, and then you go in and you start by building a project, and you have all kinds of knickknacks that help you kind of understand what you need to do on your first kind of session. And you have the ability to do just a demo. You have the demo songs that really guide you through what's the experience of working with Aiode. So we definitely try to make this as frictionless as possible. The only friction is the understanding of music theory and what is production. And that's a friction that we're willing to take, because if that friction is a filter, it filters out the people who are not relevant for a product like ours, and that's okay. We're willing to take this at this point. If we want to open and make this something that is for everybody, for music democratized for the whole world and not just for music creators, then we would have built the platform differently. And we might be doing that in the really far future, when we'll have all the roadmap already done and all what we want to be done. It's a possibility, but we have so many other really important things to do in our roadmap. One of the parts of the vision of Aiode is to make sure that we enable musicians to board themselves into the platform, and that's something that really occupies us. Like how we have like this musician waitlist form, and I think at today we're getting at least a new request every couple of days. So we have like 200, 300 musicians already approach us just in the last 3 months, I would say 3, 4 months, to come in and be a virtual musician or contribute to Aiode models. And with that, you know, we want to give everybody the option to monetize themselves. And this is kind of, as you said, creating a new revenue stream for musicians. This is something that is highly needed, not just in the UK, but if you look at the rest of the world, in some most of the places, the problem is even worse than the UK. And that's where we want to be. We want to push for a musician, artist, creator economy. And you can do that by enabling both edges to be frictionless. So currently, it has friction. If we need to model somebody, it has some friction because the technology that is needed and the development that is needed, the R&D resources that is needed to develop the next step of Aiode is grand. And with that, we need to see more support of the people in our current phase, and more kind of traction into that in order for us to move into the next phase of Aiode, which be to kind of facilitate the full ecosystem and make sure musicians can board themselves into the platform, create an account, put their Spotify, their Apple Music, their YouTube channels, so people can also commission them directly. One of the things that we want Aiode to be is a connective platform. So if you want to book somebody for a real session, you'll be able to do that through the platform as well, not just use the virtual selves. Um, that's it.
That's a great point. I was one thing, I mean, that I loved, at in Cubase, that was my main DAW for years. That is actually just like a VST Connect. I think that's the tool that you can actually make virtual recordings with people who are like in the other part of the world. They just download the free app, connect the interface, and ready to go. So like making even recordings remotely for the professional sessions. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a company called Muse, if you know them. It's a startup that is doing something similar. They're trying to connect different users, different musicians, and sessions through a better interface than most of the streaming platform, like voice call, video call streamings out there today. And they're really adamant about this, that this would be for sessions, that this would be for music. So it's interesting to see how they're gonna develop. They're amazing guys. I've met with their CEO a couple of times. Um, and there's a lot of different startups in the ecosystem that are trying to kind of solve that connectivity. Each one of them is going about this in a very different way. There are conglomerates that are doing that. Fiverr, Mati is a colleague and a friend, the CMO of Fiverr, and they have a musician platform for collaboration and kind of buying work for musicians. They have that as well. BandLab has a full ecosystem of that, but it's a bit different and it doesn't work the same for everybody. I can tell you that, and that's a personal story, but as I said, I come from a very musical home and musical background. Uh, when my wife proposed to me, she wrote a song. She wrote a song and she performed it, and we have like guitarist friends, but she wanted like a string quartet, and we don't have any friends. with the violins or cellos, or and she had a really difficult time. Like, she went into Fiverr and Upwork, and she kind of tried all kinds of marketplaces until she finds somebody who can produce that. And they initially produced that with VSTs, and then it moved to musicians who did the production live. And it, for her, it was because she's not a professional music creator. It was, she told me, it took her like 4 months just for that specifically.
Oh, that's
4 months.
nice. Wow.
The 4 months just for that. After she already wrote the song, after she had the melody in her head and everything, it took her 4 months. And and it goes.
This is really a proposal, this proposal, you know.
Yeah. Well, we're both kind of on the creative kind of spectrum, so we're both kind of
Very nice.
yeah. Thank you. So I think that's kind of the point. It's really hard to get creative, and if you to remove the blockage, you need to understand the tools. If she had any proficiency in a DAW, in any DAW, it would have cut her time in creating this in half.
Yeah.
And if she had more musical theory training, that would have cut that in half, in another half. It would have been a quarter than the whole full 4 months. It would have taken a month instead of four. And I think that in a life that we live, that trying to get you, we have a load of all kinds of stimulations all the time. We live in a world that is driven in stimulation, and we see this in all the psychological researches today, that it's going more and more and more, and the music that is created has much different kind of changes in tempos and BPMs intentionally. Some of it is a bit more experimental. Even pop today is kind of changing how it's looked from what we think of pop to what pop is today. And I think that is because of how we live. And this means that the pace that things needs to be in order to be created, facilitated, and pushed out are expected to be much, much faster than today, than years ago. If you could have sat on a song and you hear producer talk, oh, I've created this song 4 years ago, and then I gave it to this artist, and then it became a hit. I think today it's shortening these times of how, when you kind of think of something, to when you create it, to when you find your partners in crime to kind of push this and then publish it. Um, and that's a big part of why AI tools today, especially in creativity, are have that room where you need that infrastructure that kind of completes what you need.
Good point. Very good point. Although I still would say it's just like a, like some kind of temporary solution. I still believe. I mean, I'm not sure if it is possible at all. I believe perhaps not. Like live a little bit slower, right, and do less. Like work deeper, spend more time on nature. But I mean, I'm not sure it's with the contemporary world, is it really possible anymore? Yeah.
Well, I think it's relative. I think everything is relative, because if you take this and you say, I want to spend more time, I want to deepen into this, you can, if you have that ability. And the deepening of it can be done with just by yourself, or with different tools, or going into a session. And it's really relative to what are the resources that you have, because the resources that you have, time is a huge resource.
No,
Time is the
I all know that. I'm just saying that more than the economy and how everything just evolves, and I'm probably won't be it's not new on this podcast. I very often criticize like a large corporations, and I mean, honestly, I think it's the problem, right? The really big tech, that this
But you're
pushes
yourself
certain like
part
a.
of that.
Mhm.
You're yourself part of a large corporation. How do you explain that?
Well, Avid is just 1,000 people. So comparing to Amazon and, and Microsofts and Apples of the world are, it's just like a still, I would say like a small company. I mean, I'm talking about this like large international corporations, that pushes the agenda and the marketing, like you mentioned, Microsoft, right? They changed the way people say software, and, they changed the entire like ecosystem for bad, in my opinion, right? And it's actually driven by investors, driven by private equity firms, driven by, like richer get richer, even more rich, and like a normal guy. I mean, it's funny because on one hand I'm still entrepreneurial, and like I love building things, but the reason I'm still in the music industry, it still accepts that you can have a small like a company, and it's just more. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like a um,
So it so I so it I'm gonna respond specifically to that.
mhm.
I agree with you that large corporations change the agenda, change the narrative, and that's in every field. You look when I was a junior marketeer, one of the stories I love the most is the story of Coca-Cola, right? The huge conglomerate. You don't understand the length Coca-Cola went into kind of inserting itself to our daily lives. From before like claiming Christmas,
Yeah.
claiming Christmas, making Santa red instead of green. This is something that has been happening since the 1920s, 1930s, gradually, and marketing heavily towards like a general and specific public towards what is Christmas, how Christmas is Coca Cola, how Christmas is red, and that's kind of a huge thing that you see. But and I can give like tons of other example of how conglomerate are fine tuning our daily experience. I remember a case in the 80s specifically about Coca Cola, but I have so many others that I can give as example that in the 80s and 90s, um, Coca Cola changed one thing in cinemas that created an increase of 40% more orders of Coca-Cola beverages and general beverages in cinemas. Do you know what they did? They inserted the sound of tss into micro frames in movies
Okay.
and
Like it
in
reminded me of Fight Club. Remember, like cutting the movie and adding the
yes.
frames. Oh Jesus!
So it's that they added in some movies. They most of the commercials you would hear that. So when you repeatedly hear something and it's associated with something, that's almost Pavlovian, right? It's there's a cause and an effect, and we learn from that in the most like in the most generic way possible. This is part of how the human mind works and how we learn. Cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect and association. And that's just that specific move generated 40 more percent in the marketing channel, the selling channel that was one of the biggest for Coca-Cola back then, cinemas. So when you're looking at how conglomerates have the ability to affect, they have. They have a huge effect. There, I can give you examples from
No, no,
Google.
no, you don't have to. I mean, just like I follow this like a thoroughly. I'm actually there is this, like a foundation in US called Center for Humane Technology. By the way, made of by built. I mean, the Social Dilemma movie, right? And
Yes, for sure.
so they also that's their movie, and also they have a podcast, Undivided Attention. So they just
I
like
know it.
also try to so they try to lobby changes in the how technology, not using dark patterns, so not anti-technology. They're just only, like a lobbying, creating certain, making it more humane, and this is what sort of what I'm a little bit skeptic that it's going to be successful, because the money behind all this is so huge and is driven by greed, right? And then I'm not sure we can change the life for, a bit more connected to the human experience. It can be a pretty, a bit, a bit tough. But
Well,
you.
we can do our part. I can only say we can do our part by recognizing what people are selling to us and trying to understand what is the narrative of what they're selling. And I think that's also for in music tech. In a lot of, and you say that a lot of companies have inserted things. You look at Google, you look at Meta, all of them has AI models. The Minimax and the Chinese have different AI models. They all have a lot of APIs. A lot of other music tech products don't utilize their own they don't create their own proprietary technology. They use Google, they use Meta, they use different kind of uh, open source models to create their product. It's not a technology company, it's product companies that just create from you a kind of a way to prompt things in a way that would facilitate you, but it's not their own technology. They build the kind of infrastructure uh, that supports that, but they can't control if Google is now updating its model and it's going to do something better or worse. They don't have any control over that. And that's how big organizations are woven into our daily lives. If you look at Amazon, most of Amazon web services are deployed in most of the internet we know today. Like at least 30% from my last recollection, forgive me if I'm wrong, of the internet today is facilitated on Amazon Web Services, and it's deployed so heavily and so deeply. They have so many services everywhere that it's not just the Amazon that that you go into and you buy something and
Yeah,
you get shipped.
that's remember there was the outage of I think Cloudflare, right? And like half of the internet went down. That's true. But if you, I just like to think, I know we have to we ran over already, but it's just so interesting, like a conversation. I just wanted to say that I actually love our industry that much because it's actually so fragmented and there is not so much this push for, for like a indefinite growth. And, there is a lot of companies who stay relatively small, or even the biggest are still relatively small comparing to this, huge corporation. And once again, I'm not trying to say that every like a big company is big by the, I probably mostly talk about the social media that I personally have a problem with as well, Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. That it's great that still, we can do our part by creating, first of all, ethical products, but secondly, not being hooked, but you always need to grow at any cost, because I mean, I think a lot of this growth come from these trade-offs that you sort of compromise with your vision and ethics, right? And a lot of like a music businesses, they say, hey, no, we just want to do our way and we want to like support creators. We are all creators, so we actually feel this obligation, right? To be true to our vision, right? So that's, I think.
I think it's one of the voices. I'm not sure this is what's going to continue on later in music tech. I think the music tech and music and creative music is going to be always fragmented, and I'm super happy about that. But I think as more and more uh, big companies going into music and creativity and look at it as an entertainment form, not in a media form, and not just a creativity and a technological creativity outlet, then it's gonna change a bit towards the narrative of the what the big companies are looking for. And you see this with some mergers that happened lately. So Google just acquired Producer AI. if I'm not mistaken. There's much more coming on the way that I know. So we're living in a very interesting times right now. I think there's gonna be some consolidation in the market. And that's something you see all over the market where there's new technologies, there's a spread, and there's consolidation. And there's again another spread and another consolidation. And I think music tech is going towards that direction as well.
I do hope, on the other hand, that will be new, the way, the reason I also invite also startups to the podcast, and I do this podcast, although it's obviously not a commercial project, is, I do have this feeling we need more creators funding companies and, maybe a new ways of innovation and musical instruments, etc. So
that's the fragmentation. I think without bold startups that will defy the ways, the narratives that larger companies are building towards, then that fragmentation will slow down much quicker than what we'll want to see. And I don't see it only with us that we're considered very bold and we're considered a bit kind of edgy in the field and in how we look at things and how we push for regulation. Why are we pushing for regulation when we're an AI company? Because it's the right thing to do. But if more companies will go this way, and this is going to be a paradigm shift and a narrative shift, and I think we'll be on the best way possible. If not, I think we're gonna continue on the very corporate way where the startups that you're gonna interview are going to kind of fade out or be bought out very quickly. So really depends.
Yeah. To the listeners, if you're watching or listening on the streaming platforms, the link to Aiode, it's in the description. So if you want to go and try out the free version and play around, definitely check it out. Varda, thank you so much. I know we have to finish. Hopefully we'll meet again soon. Sometimes, of course.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure our class will pass really soon.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, What's Tech. It was a pleasure as always talking to you. I think we've overextended our time because I think we can talk even another 2 hours without noticing. So thank you for your time and thank you for inviting me. And I wish all of us a very fragmented, rich, and creative experience full of music and musicians.
Thank you so much.
You too. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you liked it. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course on our YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to it and hit the bell, because we publish a lot of interesting videos there, not just the episodes. You can also become a supporter and get premium content like additional reading, unpublished videos on our Buy Me a Coffee page, linked in the description of this episode. See you in the next one. Yo.